Welcome to My Blockchain Island. I'm your hostess, Carla Marie. Hi everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of My Blockchain Island. Today we have a very special guest and local individual who's officially from the Rock, because we've had a lot of international guests. Please welcome James Muscat Azzopardi from Credence.
Thanks.
Hi. So James, I'm just going to jump into the deep end here because you're the go-to guy when it comes to anything around crypto funds and assets around the fund management.
One of the go-to guys.
One of the guys.
There are a few lawyers in Malta who are very good at this.
Okay, but you're my go-to guy.
Fair enough.
Well, you're the go-to guy for the show. Let's put it that way. All right. So a lot of people come to me and ask me, like, how do I go about setting up a fund in Malta? And we've got this fantastic framework that's very welcoming, Malta's blockchain island, and you know, like lots of international interest about how do I start a fund in Malta. Can you give us the A to Z?
All right. So first of all, there are a number of options for setting up a fund in Malta, but the MFSA has issued guidelines specifically for funds that are investing in virtual currencies mainly. I'm assuming that that will be widened as we go along. But the first thing I want to point out that this has nothing to do, I mean for us as lawyers possibly it's obvious, but for the public it's not. This has nothing to do with the new blockchain and virtual financial asset regulation.
This is something that
this falls under, exactly.
In fact, you mentioned MFSA. MFSA is like Malta Financial Services. It's like the BaFin of Germany. It's the SciSec of Cyprus.
Yeah, but the MFSA is also the regulator for virtual financial assets. But
exactly.
That's a different.
That's the next layer, right?
Exactly. So the MFSA has said that if a fund is investing in this type of assets, it needs to be a professional investor fund. So we've already narrowed the field down. I won't go into too much detail here because it will be boring, but what it effectively means is that a professional investor fund is aimed, you know, as the clues in the name, professional investors. So they cannot be, that type of fund cannot be sold to retail investors. It's a question of protection.
Sure.
So in fund regulation, pretty much globally, there's one type of regulation for retail investors and one type of regulation for professional investors.
Sure.
Professional investors are assumed to be more sophisticated, more savvy, and know what they're doing. Whereas your retail investor is someone who's just come in, you know, with maybe 100 euros and doesn't really know anything about sophisticated financial products. The guidelines haven't changed much. So what they're saying is that, in brief, if your fund is going to invest in this type of assets, you need to show the MFSA, you need to show the regulator that you know what you're doing.
Okay.
That you have your
well, ideally, yes.
Yes, because it's a particular type of asset. So what the MFSA is saying, what the guidelines are saying, is that look, the rules are there to ensure that you know what you're doing in this particular field. Normally, it's always up to you to convince the regulator. So you need to show that your board of directors, your investment committee, or whoever is doing the management of the fund knows how to distinguish between what's a good investment and what's not a good investment in this field, knows how to monitor what's going on, knows ideally how to avoid at least the major pitfalls, and can offer investors a certain amount of, you know, a robust system for protecting ultimately investors' money. As with all other professional investor funds, this doesn't mean that there's no possibility of you losing money, absolutely. So we've seen a great volatility in crypto. Whether that's going to continue is anyone's guess. If I do, I'd probably be very rich, but I don't know, so I'm not. But virtually that's it. So setting up a fund in Malta is a pretty straightforward process if you've got the right people on board. Absolutely. Obviously, because you need to show.
Because it is about who is the core operation, right? It's very much about the people you're entrusting with the money.
Yes, exactly.
Because it all falls on the people.
Let's distinguish between directors and then the people who are carrying out the actual asset management, whether it's an asset management company or a self-managed fund or an investment committee.
Sure.
Those are two main options.
Okay.
So you've got a board of directors that need to show that they are, you know, people of integrity, that they know what they're doing, the MFSA will look quite deeply into their background.
Okay, so a full like enhanced
Yes.
level of due diligence upon the individual
Absolutely.
themselves, one by one.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Unless those persons are already regulated,
Sure,
already involved in other regulated entities.
sure,
In that case, all you do is you update.
sure,
So,
sure.
A practical example, you give them a more modern police conduct certificate, and you just say,
Sure.
with the investment committee is different. With the investment committee, you need to show that you have competence in that particular asset class. So, to give maybe a basic example, if I have years of experience in funds that are trading gold, it doesn't mean that I know how to invest in
It's a brilliant example.
crypto. You know,
It's a brilliant
in
example.
crypto, I need to show that I have either experience or qualification, or ideally both. And again, it's up to me to convince the regulator that yes, I should be accepted as a member of that investment committee.
And by you mean the individual that's applying on within this company, applying for the fund.
You typically have a promoter who's presenting the fund,
Okay.
who's applying to the MFSA.
Sure.
And the promoter within the application tells the MFSA, look,
Awesome. Okay,
this is
gotcha.
going to be my board of directors,
Gotcha.
and this is going to be my investment committee.
Cool.
You typically have to have substance here, so you need some of the people involved being based here.
Okay.
You need to have meetings in Malta, or at
Like
least the
your-
majority of the
Your
meetings have to
quarterly,
be.
your board, your
Typically, you'll be asked to have a minimum of 4 meetings a year, the majority of which are held in Malta.
Well, that's pretty common, like
Yes.
with company directorships, right? Like
But with non-regulated companies, that's not a legal requirement. That would come out of tax considerations,
Sure,
because
sure,
you
sure.
do need to show that your
board's
company is being
active.
effectively managed and controlled in Malta.
Mhm.
But with funds, it's an MFSA requirement. You also need to show that you've got proper custody of assets. So you need to show what are your systems in place for custody of assets.
Okay.
Without, at this stage, time will tell what type of custody will be acceptable to MFSA, because we're speaking about assets where technology is changing very, very rapidly. So that's an interesting one
Okay.
to follow.
What's the current status quo on that, though? What are
You
people
will-
doing at the moment?
I'm not aware of any crypto funds yet set up in Malta,
Okay.
so we're still very, very, very early in the
Okay.
industry.
But the MFSA is open-minded to crypto funds being set up in Malta.
Yes, and that is why there are guidelines. So
Yeah.
once you have a guideline that really shows, listen,
Yeah.
yes, we're accepting them,
Okay.
subject to obviously you convincing the MFSA that you know what you're doing and that the project is
Good.
a real project, a genuine one, and will ultimately protect investors. Because even investors are professional investors, they still need to be protected. Another thing that will be really important, particularly on the guidelines, is that your prospectus, which is what you're actually giving investors to read before they sign up effectively, what is binding you, highlights the risks, because there are particular risks associated with crypto.
Of course.
As
As with everything, but in
As with
crypto-
everything.
but crypto has been, like you said, a little bit more volatile than one would imagine. So people, I think, there's a certain skepticism around it. And
Yes,
people read
there has been volatility.
people
There
read
have
these
been-
articles about people becoming Bitcoin millionaires. It's not going to happen anymore. It's just like
That I don't know.
no, I
That
this
I don't
is not going to happen anymore. This kind of like large fluctuations of like the boom of things. It's just like it's not healthy to think that way. It could, okay, I'll take it back. It could happen, but it's not healthy to think that way.
Agreed. I'm saying it could happen because it depends really on investor sentiment.
Okay,
So if
I agree with you on that point.
that's it.
I agree
So
with you on
what
that
pushed Bitcoin up last year?
point. The fluctuation?
Just people assuming
Assume-
that
the
someone
assumption.
else is going to buy it at a much higher price.
Sure.
Will that happen again? Honestly, I've got no idea. Because if I thought that would happen again, I'd sell anything I have and
Yeah.
just put everything into
No,
crypto. But I wouldn't today.
Yeah.
Then again, I'm no investment advisor. So
No,
it's just-
no, and neither am I. I mean, it's just that obviously, like, I more refer to the media side of things where a lot of people kind of read these articles and just like, like, I bought 1 Bitcoin, now I bought 10 Bitcoin, now I'm a millionaire. Like, these stories are very specific kind of stories. It's just kind of like, I bought a lottery ticket and I won the lottery. It's like any investment that you do is a risk. You have to accept that, yes, maybe at some point you might earn money out of making an investment, but also can lose a lot of money. You shouldn't be tampering around with things that just based on pure luck. You need to support the core of the individual before. So I just like
I agree totally, and this fits in precisely with crypto funds. So personally, if I was looking at investing in a crypto fund, I wouldn't put my life savings into a crypto fund. I would say, look, this is an amount of money that, you know, I can afford to lose.
Yeah.
So I can invest in a crypto fund because I'm trusting that the persons who are running the fund have a much more detailed knowledge of crypto than I do. And I'm trusting that they're on the ball and they're really watching what's happening, which is something that I don't have time to do. And I can either make a lot of money or I lose it, but it has to be an amount that you can afford to lose. Of course. Because we are speaking about a particularly volatile
What
asset.
excites you about the investment in the space, though?
What excites me is the next step. So what the general perception or the general feeling in the industry is that, you know, we had the ICO bubble is clearly burst. You know, we had ICOs, they blew up. But now we're getting institutional investors coming in. We spoke about this recently on a similar program. The fact that you've got your endowments coming in, you've got your big institutional investors coming in, that's exciting. And that I think will define 2019 and will define where the industry is going. Because once the very big players come in, then the industry takes off in a much more widespread and a much more significant way.
But I think it's positive. I look at that as highly positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
very exciting.
That will mean more regulation because people are going to be looking at, you know, regulated. It will be very good for Malta because what we're offering is regulation and certainty. And I think we've done I'm biased, but I think we've done
It's okay, you're in the Malta My Blockchain Island studio. You can be as biased as you want.
Absolutely. So I think that in general, as Malta, we've done a very good job of crypto regulation. Obviously, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Yeah. So regulation is coming into force literally tomorrow. It is live.
No.
Tomorrow, if you're seeing it today. So 1st November.
It came in on the 1st of November, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, 1st of November. And we'll see the first entities being regulated sometime next year, depending on how long they take to give licenses, first of all, to VFE agents, and then actual products. And I'm really curious as to how that will map out. Yeah. But we will attract. If we look at our investment fund industry, we've done very well over the last few years. You know,
there are a lot of investment funds. I mean, like a lot of people come on the show and they talk about the gambling, the iGaming industry being significant to Malta. But a lot of people don't realize that the financial services and funds, in particular, as part of the financial services, is a massive industry in Malta. Now, tons of people working in these funds, and that's exciting. I mean,
it is, and it creates. So you've got people working in asset management, you've got people working in fund administrators. There are, I'd say, over 30 probably fund administrators in Malta. You've got people working at custodians, working on parts of the banks that are doing custody. Yep. It's quite a large industry. It's not as visible as the gaming industry because the gaming industry, first of all, is bigger in terms of numbers. Yes. A gaming company needs to employ, you know, many more people than an investment fund typically. And investment funds and asset management companies tend to be relatively low key, so you don't have the really huge visibility of the
big glowing signs on the top of the building.
Absolutely, but they're here. They're in Malta. We're considered as one of the top EU jurisdictions, and this will possibly, you know, the fact that we're giving a certain amount of clarity towards investment funds investing in crypto will continue to strengthen the funds industry apart from the crypto industry.
Wonderful. So I'm just going to recap a little bit about and just jump back to the whole fund part. So international people looking to set up a fund in Malta, they come to entities like yourself. You're able to guide them through the process of what's required for the MFSA application. Is there a specific time period where you specifically see the application go through, or is it subject to the? Because I've heard a lot of questions. It's always subject to due diligence. Like it depends on how you said if they're already known or if they're completely new. That could really affect an application.
Yes, the timeline does depend on due diligence. So basically what happens is we're approached typically by clients. First of all, we assess their competence.
Okay.
So if we don't think that they're competent, it won't even present an application.
Sure.
If we think that they're competent, then we sit down with them, we understand exactly what they want to do, what they want to do. We decide exactly how to structure the fund. We draft the fund documentation, so we're speaking about the application, the memorandum and articles, the prospectus, agreements with third parties. That's important because you've got a custodian, you've got an administrator, you've got an asset manager possibly.
Sure.
You can sometimes be plugged in into an existing scheme, but that's another possibility. And then we apply. And then there's a process of liaising with the MFSA. So the MFSA we're looking at, if I had to really sum it down, who are you? So, how serious are you and what's your background? And do you know what you're doing? That's what they're looking at. And then they'll be looking at documentation very, very carefully to see that what you're presenting to potential investors makes sense and reflects what you're actually going to be doing. And you're live, but how long that takes really, really depends on project to project. So it depends on the experience of the people behind the fund. So if you're a huge fund manager elsewhere, and you come here and the MFSA already know who you are, it's obviously easier. If your board of directors are new, it's one thing. If they're people who are already MFSA recognized, it's another. So
that makes sense, though. It makes sense. I mean, obviously, due diligence cases I've been involved in, sometimes like, wow, you open the box and you just, wow.
Exactly. And personally, I like the approach. I like MFSA's approach.
Yeah, I think it's sensible as well.
We're a small country, and ultimately, and our reputation is really, really important. And we can't afford, to give a license to people who are whether fraudsters or scammers or who don't know what they're doing. So I prefer waiting a few extra months. I hope the MFSA aren't watching this, but I prefer waiting.
They probably are. Hi. Feel free to come on the show.
Waiting a few extra months, but knowing that the MFSA are doing their job properly as they do. They do.
Yeah, no, and I think like it would be sensible for any regulatory firm. Like I'm not even going to say it's just the MFSA. I mean, any regulatory body would take a significant amount of time to make sure that anybody they give a license to, because it's also their reputation at hand, not just on a national level, but their reputation.
Correct.
Who else would want to come to the same regulatory body that's approving, fraudulent funds, and it just doesn't make sense from an entity and then from even a country perspective.
Agreed.
All right, cool. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about the world of your world of funds, and apart from the excitements of the future of next year, for sure?
Nothing particular. That's what we're really curious about what's going to happen. The regulations coming into force, as I'm saying. People have different predictions. So some people think that regulation is going to scare people away. Some people think, and I'm on the latter group, think that with proper regulation we're going to attract really serious players. We're already seeing it. So ourselves and other firms are seeing a huge amount of interest. I mean, it's much more than anyone probably expected. We'll see how that goes forward with regulation, but it's a very exciting time to be in the industry.
Wonderful. Good stuff. Thank you so much,
Thank
James,
you.
for coming on the show and sharing this information. I think this is very, very useful information. And you're helping me a lot, because I get these questions a lot in my inbox, and now I can just refer them to this lovely video that I've done with you. So thank you very much once again for sharing insights.
It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure to be here.
We'll hopefully do a catch-up session later on next year. And we'll just tap into what were we saying there, and like how do we think it's going to move forward?
That will be even more productive. We'll be able to speak about, without mentioning names, but actual examples
and processes.
Makes it more interesting.
Yeah, of course. It'll definitely keep it interesting. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening today and tuning in. If you like what you hear, please do share it, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Have a lovely afternoon. I'll see you very soon.